And so I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking, but I did want to introduce a very special guest that we have with us today from the Board of Education, State Board of Education. Eileen Strauss is here to welcome you and to give you a little glimpse of to what you're in store for today. So can you please welcome our State Board of Education?
We just want to welcome everybody here and to our colleagues in San Diego County office who are on remote. They're going to actually be participating by remote and being part of the question and answer period as well. This session is organized to give you a quick overview of the law, of what it is and what it isn't. And it's so important for us that we work with the field and with the county offices to help with the implementation of this significant change in our funding model. And as we know as educators, this is a really significant change for all of us. So really, we so much appreciate you coming. I want to thank Art Delgado and his staff here at LA County, and also Randy Ward and his staff in San Diego, who helped put this all together. So this is part of, there's regional input sessions all over the state going on this week and next week. There's a working group in Sacramento. Everything Janelle will talk about will tell you what our process is, and there'll be more continued input through the process. We have a pretty short timeline, and we really want to hear from the field. Those of us who've worked in the field know how important it is that the systems that go into place really work for what the goals of the funding are. So what I'm going to introduce is Janelle Kubanek. Janelle is from West Ed. She is leading and coordinating this for the state. And so Janelle, thank you so much. She'll share with you the process, how you'll get a chance to ask questions, and what the entire process is. So Janelle, thank you, and thanks to everyone for being part of this and taking time out of a busy time in August to come to LA County to hear about this.
Thanks, Eileen. Let me put this in the right place. Well, welcome everyone. This is we are glad to see so many people. This is the first start of local control, is that we need to hear what's happening locally. So this is our first of a series of 3 regional stakeholder groups in 6 locations. And this includes today, as Eileen mentioned, with you here physically. We have folks obviously physically but virtually connected to us in San Diego. I believe there's about 50 or so in that room, and I can tell the folks in San Diego we have, fire marshal maximum 150 and maybe a few snuck under tables here. So thank you for being here. We do have another session in Sacramento and Shasta on Monday, which will be broadcast remotely as well. And then on Tuesday, I'm sorry, I'm reversing them. No, that's right. And Tuesday in Fresno in Kern County. So if you want to view more, we'll have an opportunity on Monday's sessions. They will be broadcast on the web, and we would be happy if you don't already have the information of how you access that. Yes, a question?
I was just wondering if what you're presenting to us today as a PowerPoint will be available to the public and we can share that with other organizations.
Yes, and I will share with you how to find information about LCFF.
Great, thank you.
Okay. So we are obviously packed here today. We have a number of speakers. The intent of today is to hear from you, so I will do very little talking, but I do want to start by letting you know, as Eileen said, I'm Janelle Kubanek. I'm with West Ed. We've been asked by the state board to help them with their coordination of the public input process and their responsibilities that they have to the legislature. So I'll talk about that in a moment. I am joined here today with representatives of the state board and the governor's office. They're like U.S. fire marshals. You can't tell where they are on the plane, but they're here. So thank you. Thank them for here. We are here to listen. Okay, so our process, as you saw, maybe I have a recorder. We are taking detailed notes of what you say, but also what you leave us in writing. So you'll notice there are yellow comment cards throughout the room. If you don't feel like coming up and making a comment into the mic, we will welcome your comments by writing. We also welcome them by email. So if you would like to email comments, you can send those to lcff@wested.org. We are accepting those through the end of the public hearing process to include in the record for the public hearing. So what that means is you can send them after the fact, but what we're doing for the state board meeting that's going to occur in September is we are putting together a consolidated summary of all the comments that come through this process, including those received by the yellow cards, email, and today's comments as well as next week's comments that are shared. So we invite you, there's many avenues of which to share your comments, and we know this takes some time to process, so we expect that we'll see those comments coming in over the next weeks and perhaps even months here. I'm realizing I better turn off my cell phone. And so let's see. We also have the number of comments in order to allow for the maximum number of participation in that. We are limiting comments to 2 minutes. So again, invite you, if you think you have lengthier comments, to either leave us or remarks, write things down, send us an email. There's lots of ways that we can get your feedback. So we're going to limit to 2 minutes. For those of we are grouping comments into 3 categories. So we will go through comments in those categories. Hopefully,
That's too loud?
No.
It's breaking
Not at all clear enough. Yeah.
Whoa, it's from the main CDE, so we'll find out what's going on.
Do they know?
Yeah, we're gonna call right
have
now.
our remote locations push mute on your microphones, please? We're enjoying your conversation. Okay, great. So, see, I lost my train of thought. We're going to start over now. So we're going to take comments in those 3 sections. We're going to go to our remote locations and allow them to make comments into the record as well. And we're going to have to ask you to indulge us here. We may end up going a little past 12 o'clock in order to accommodate everyone. Okay, so our intention is to hear from everyone that's here, but also to make sure you're aware there are multiple opportunities to comment. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and give you a very brief overview of LCFF. I think one of the intentions we have here is to provide information as well as to gather information from you. So Eileen started by saying this is a major change in our funding system. If you look back over time, we haven't really changed the basic structure of how California distributes funds to schools in over 40 years. So what we've done with local control funding formula is really taken on not just a small change, not just a marginal change. This isn't adding a dollar or adding a program. This is changing the system. And if you think about what those major changes are, we are moving from what was revenue limit based. So we had a formula, we had districts had their number, and that provided for most of the activities that occurred within our operations. And then we supplemented that or added to that through categorical programs. We over the years, if you go back to 2006-07, we had reached the point where we had about 50 categorical programs. So what LCFF is bringing to us is something much different. It's asking us to think beyond the categories and to focus on what we really need for students and how we're going to perform to that, which is very different than where we've been. And so, in this slide you can see those changes outlined. We continue, though, to recognize that we have needs for students that are at risk, low income, English learners, foster youth. And the formula accommodates those students in the creation of an unduplicated pupil count, or what becomes essentially a weighted component of the formula, of which funds are provided. And providing not just, the base, but also something extra in terms of how do we address the needs of students, with the understanding that this is intended to support local flexibility accompanied by performance expectations and accountability. So one of the other big changes here is we have had an accountability system in our state that has not been attached to our budgeting process. We have had, and we will persist and continue to have, the Academic Performance Index and other state reports and measures, but now we will add to this the Local Control Accountability Plan, which is an accompanying piece that would go with our local budgets under LCFF, or local control funding. So this is intended to really redesign, redevelop the system. If you try to crosswalk it, you can, but you may get lost. And the reason is that this is meant to be different. Now, with saying that, there are some things that are unchanged. We are still expecting Williams requirements to be met, so that includes sufficient instructional materials, adequate facilities, procedures that we can have in place if people have concerns or issues with how our schools are operating. There's nothing in LCFF that changes that. In addition, we are not saying that while we're giving you the money differently, we're not going to watch the money. All districts, charter schools, LEAs are expected to continue to meet financial auditing requirements. There might be some changes, but this is really the financial auditing standards are in place. There is still an expectation that school accountability report cards will be completed and available to the public. And also, very importantly, federal reporting and accountability requirements are not changed by LCFF, like not at least directly. So all the requirements that are in place for parental engagement, site councils, planning, etc., that are associated with our title funds, namely Title I as well as Title III, continue to be requirements. And so this is really meant to, as we re-envision and build the system, it's keeping those requirements in mind and creating a state structure that complements that, okay, through LCFF. In addition, the other thing I will say that's not changed, when we had our system of revenue limits and categorical programs, these were dollars that went to local educational agencies, meaning districts and charters, for their management. So local control funding in its as it's written in law is not about site-based management. With that said, there should be, expectations reasonably at a local level. We will have conversations about how do we direct resources to sites to meet the needs of pupils. But the state has constructed a system where the local education agency continues to be the sub-grantee. So this is just a brief overview of what's in place and what's different. This is recently the Legislative Analyst's Office provided a report that provided an overview of LCFF. So this is borrowed from them with an addition, and that is the asterisk on the total. What this lays out is visually, as well as through some numbers, how the formula aggregates up to what we might receive at a district level for our pupils. So you can see in this graphic, it shows you, this is 22 kids, in case you want to save yourself from counting. And of those, that dotted line is the demarcation where we get to 55%. So for those of you that are quick with math, you go, oh, that's 11 kids. Okay, everyone agrees that yes, I did the math. So what this is showing is how the formula works. If we have 22 students, and we are in a district where there are, out of that 22 students, there are 13 of them that we would say fall into the unduplicated pupil, meaning they're low income, they're English learner, and or foster youth. What happens under the formula is the base amount is given for all 22. You can see that in the line that says K3 base rate, and then what you see added to that is adjustments. So there are various adjustments embedded into the formula or add-ons to the formula. Includes K3 class size reduction, additional funds for college career readiness at the high school level, and that is, in this particular example, it's the K3 adjustment. You can see every student, it generates the base plus the K3 adjustment. Then added to that, for our first 55% of students, there's a weight that provides for an additional 20% of the base for the first 55% of students. And that's what you see for the light blue students. We have that ELLI supplement. That also is given to all students that fit into the category, but for those over 55%, that is the last two in this example, they will generate an additional what's called concentration amount. That concentration amount is 50% of the base added to that, generated just for the students over 55%. So when you can see, this is the amounts, what that leads to is the amount of funding if we were at the point of full implementation of LCFF. So the asterisk that I've added to the LAO report is this example is really a target right now. It includes a cost of living adjustment that would be attributable as part of that target. But this is by no means what districts are receiving today. So, for several years, but you can see the basic mechanics of the formula. This is not meant to be that complicated, right? It can be explained in stick figures, maybe with some color. So this is what it looks like, and this is what goes to a local education agency to determine, distribute locally, based on, with an expectation that students that are in this population that are part of our unduplicated, their needs will be met for improved and enhanced programs. So this is the basic mechanics of what we see in local control. As I said, this is going to take some time. 2013-14, the year we're in right now, is the first year of implementation. This is largely a transition year. We have the law, but we don't have all the rules yet. So what that means is districts are expected to implement starting now, meaning funding will be going to districts and charters, so local education agencies, with this formula now. But regulations and templates, so regulations are that which clarifies how the law will be enacted through what actions of the state board. Those regulations and templates are outlined in the legislation for creation at the beginning of 2014. So the expectation is that by January 31st, 2014, the state board will have adopted regulations, and that by March 31st of 2014, there will be templates in place. That timeline is very deliberate. It's meant to be in place so that in our 2014-15 school year, our schools can operate with those tools in place. And our budgets will then be reviewed with our plans through our county offices as of 2014-15. This, as I said, will take time, so we're expecting, based on availability of funding or projections of funding, that it will be 2020, 2021, where we reach full implementation. And so in those intervening years, we will see increases as the state contributes more to education. It will flow out through this formula, and we will get closer and closer to those targets that have been established. And also some of the provisions, such as class size reduction, will phase in commensurate with the amount of funding that's added to the system. The things, I just want to be clear, that the state board is doing, as I mentioned, are the regulations, the templates. You can see the references to the Ed Code, as well as, after all of that, rubrics. So if we're going to have plans in place, how do we evaluate them? That's due in October 2015. But certainly everything that is coming in as feedback as we look at the templates, that really should inform how we also start thinking about the creation of rubrics. And so that's the brief overview. What I have at the end of today, you'll see a slide, that the Department of Education has recently posted and is working on posting more information to its website. So if you go to www.cde.ca.gov, you will see on the homepage now, in the center section, a button for local control funding formula. If you click that, it will lead you to recent and current information, including recently posted frequently asked questions, of which more will be populated. It will also, if you want to see the legislation, there will also be other correspondence that occurred regarding LCFF posted in the upcoming days. So really encourage you to go to that site, to remain current on what's available, and there are a number of things that will be posted in the upcoming weeks that will help you think about implementation and how you support LCFF in your local education agency, in your communities. So with that, I'd like to close this portion off and enter into the public comment. And as we said earlier, comments are limited to 2 minutes, so we can allow maximum participation. We'll first take comments from our audience here in Los Angeles, and then we will turn it over to San Diego for comments, and we will rotate through the topics that way. And you can see the 3 topics. I have the sign-in list, and again, I would ask that if you have a comment to make that somebody has made, if you could just say you support the comment, that would be appreciated to allow for us to conclude today's session in a timely way. And I'd also again repeat, if you feel like your comment can be made via the comment cards, please consider that as an option as well. So with that, we're going to have somebody timing these right here. And we're going to start with topic 1 here in Los Angeles, and that topic is LCFF budget and funding use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read off the first 3 commenters, and then as they finish, we'll call up the next three. So people can be in the aisle ready to make comments. We'll try to move through this. We will give you an indicator that you have,
20 seconds.
20 seconds, and then we will tell you when time is up. And given the amount of comments that we have, I think we have close to 60 between the two locations, we are going to have to hold the 2 minutes. So apologize in advance for any perceived rudeness. It's not meant to be. So our first commenter is somebody from Santa Barbara Unified, and I cannot read the first name. I apologize. Oh, okay. Meg. And after Meg is Mike Patterson, then Steve Ward. So if you can, for the record, tell us who you are, and then go ahead and make the comment, and we'll start the timer. So, Meg.
I'm Meg Chate, Assistant Superintendent of Business Services for the Santa Barbara Unified School District. My comment is regarding the reduction of my categoricals by $8 million due to one-time release of cash from my RDA. That will not happen again in 13-14, but yet I've been reduced by $8 million. Therefore, I'm not held harmless. I am, again, $8 million short for my budget. So this concerns me, plus it has been reduced out of my target amount. So I am requesting that RDA one-time asset release of funds to districts not be included in the target, nor are they part of reducing. It's very distracting. So I'm requesting that we look at the one-time asset release from the dissolution of our RDAs to not be included in those reduction of my categoricals, nor would it be reducing my target amount for 2021. Thanks.
Thank you very much. So, Mike.
Go for it.
My name is Michael Patterson. I'm a labor relations representative for the California School Employees Association. I just want to make the comment that our schools are a people business that provide a service to our communities. That service is the education of our students. Yes, we need teachers in the classroom and administrators to manage the business, but most of all, there needs to be a full cadre of classified personnel that provides the support needed for teachers to properly educate students. In the last 5 years, we've seen our schools deteriorate in support for students with the elimination of paraeducators, clerical staff, and maintenance people. Maintenance and cleanliness have been pushed to the wayside with the layoffs of custodians and skilled tradesmen. Secretaries are performing the duties of health clerks while trying to provide assistance to parents, answer phones, and generate reports that are needed to ensure that schools will receive proper funding. Classified employees are essential to providing a safe and conducive environment for our students. This is an opportunity to ensure that funding is provided for the restoration of these services so that our students can be taught in a safe, clean environment. We need classified custodians brought back so they can clean the classrooms and the restrooms, clean daily. We need classified tradesmen returned to ensure that the new green technology is properly utilized, that heaters on cold days are working, to ensure the plumbing works, to make certain that classrooms are safe for students. We need classified paraeducators to return not only to service the special needs students, but to assist and encourage the students that are not qualified as special needs, to give that extra support so that no student falls behind. We need classified health clerks returned so that they can take care of the students so that secretaries can more efficiently run the front office.
20 seconds.
These student services, along with others, are needed to ensure that students receive the help needed so that they can be successful with their education. A properly staffed classified service will entrust that success will happen. Thank you.
155.
Okay, so Steve's is coming up. Diane Fogarty, Eddie Lemon, and Stephanie Phillips or Tony Wold from Santa Ana.
Good morning. My name is Steve Ward, and I am the Associate Superintendent for the Clovis Unified School District. Today, I am representing the California School Finance Reform Coalition and its 38 and growing school districts who represent over 450,000 students. 6 of our member districts are here today to provide input as you begin discussions on implementing the local control funding formula. Our coalition is committed to ensuring the successful implementation of the LCFF and strongly supports the broad principles of local and control and accountability to ensure that English learner, low-income, and foster youth students are provided the services they need to be successful in school. We are hopeful that the State Board of Education will adopt the LCFF and LCAP regulations that are minimal and will clarify statutory application without extending or amplifying the underlying LCFF law. At the same time, we request that the regulations maintain flexibility to allow school agencies to exercise local control so they can focus effectively on individual needs of every student without excessive and unnecessary bureaucracy and oversight. School agencies must be allowed the local control necessary to flexibly design systems which demonstrate how the expenditure of funds can be managed to show consistent growth in student achievement for all of their students. We urge the board to refrain from establishing a strict maintenance of effort requirement, which we believe would diminish local flexibility at the district-wide level. Finally, school agencies must also be held accountable for the growth in academic results for all of their students. Thank you for your consideration and the critical work you are doing to implement policies that will impact the lives of millions of children for years to come.
Diane Fogarty, Loyola Marymount University. We are one of the largest university intern preparers in the state. We are here today to respectfully call attention to the unintended consequences and negative impact that proposed funding formulas may have on school districts, charter management organizations, and ultimately the K-12 teachers and students we serve. The value of IHEs like LMU must be considered in the discussion on local funding. To give you a sense of the scope of our support for intern programs, in 2013, Loyola Marymount prepared over 350 intern teachers, most of whom work in under-resourced areas. Partnered with 116 public and charter schools, maintained detailed MOUs and service agreements with each, assisted district and charter partners with technical expertise, specialized knowledge, and the funding required to support their intern teachers, exceeded CTC mandated support levels by paying the full costs of all of our interns on-site support providers in support of our district partners. We highlight these examples to show that IHEs are critical partners in California's system of intern preparation. There are several events on the horizon that IHEs are uniquely prepared to handle, and we fear that proposed funding formulas may inhibit our ability to do so. Among these future events are demographic shifts that will see many California teachers retire, an increase in EL and special education populations that IHEs like LMU have the expertise and experience to support, and an increase in CTC regulations for intern support. Districts will be affected by these trends, and IHEs are poised to help our partners manage these changes. As an entrepreneurial school of education, we fully support the state board's move to decentralize budget decisions. We suggest that the board continue to embrace local control while simultaneously considering a financially viable way for IHEs to continue partnering with districts. One potential solution could be for the CTC and the board to develop a competitive grant program for IHEs. Such a program would preserve local control, instill accountability among IHEs, and allow IHEs to continue serving California teachers and their students. Thank you.
So after Tony Wold, Estelle Lemieux, Michael Clear, Joel, Sean.
Oh, you call my name somewhere.
Eddie Lamont. So to go ahead, Tony, and then we'll have Eddie go, Estelle, Michael Clear, and Joel, Sean.
Good morning, Tony Wold, Santa Ana Unified. We want to start off by saying that we strongly support the movement of the local control funding formula. We think it's been the right time to really fund on the students that each district serves today, and we think it poises well as demographic changes have happened in California for the last many years. The districts serve different students, and this will poise well in the future as student populations go. That being said, like many districts, Santa Ana struggled with a structural deficit, and we think as the state board is looking at the regulations and looking at implementation, districts need to be able to get back to where they were in 2007, 2008 as it comes to unrestricted resources. When you look at a Santa Ana, the supplemental grants and the concentration grants actually come from funds that were flexible today. Under Tier 3, those dollars were flexible. Under the supplemental grant and the concentration grant, those funds now are following the language of enhance or improve. And so for us, our concern is the enhance or improve. When you have a district where 90% of the students are or were English language learners or live in poverty, we believe that there should be provisions just like in Title I where you have school-wide provisions district-wide provisions that the funds can be used flexibly to serve all students, especially when your entire district, 90% or more, is that student of need, that the local flexibility to make those decisions to improve our programs and continue our programs. Because our concern is, like one of the speakers before, most of our Tier 3 funds were used flexibly to maintain our maintenance staff, maintain our classified clerical staff, maintain those positions.
20 seconds.
Without that flexibility, we would be in a position where we'd have to start making cuts to our base to maintain. So we just ask for the continued flexibility to serve 90%. Thank you.
I have a mic for her.
Hello, I'm Amy Lamont. And I'm from the Compton Unified School District, a community person. And I'm very concerned. Everybody else is all for this, but I've seen things like this happen in federal programs when they started giving the money to the districts and they had no committees that had review of them. And I'm very concerned that they don't, whether you're going to have like a district, we call them district advisory committees now, but you could call it anything. The name could be anything, but I think the community should be able to review and write off on any of these funds that are being presented. Like the consolidated application, and I'm wondering if that's going to happen. Okay, that's it.
I'm Estelle Lemieux with the California Teachers Association. We would concur with what you said, Janelle, earlier, that the State Board of Education adopts these regulations with a common understanding of the law, which states that the money should flow to the local school districts rather than to the individual student. The district is then responsible for showing how services are provided to these children and all students in the district. Districts need the flexibility to provide the services that the local school district community decides best meets the needs of all children. We also believe that the regulations for the supplemental and concentration grants should not be more restrictive than Title I. As you know, right now, the school-wide minimum is 40% of the students in the school, and that the money flows, if it's over 40%, to the district, and they provide the services that are needed for those kids, those students. The regulations for the LCAP template should recognize the importance of investing in professional capital. This means to us that educators are actively involved in the process. It also means that the regulations and the plans should demonstrate how school districts are providing continuous, comprehensive professional development to meet the needs of a diverse student population. Thank you.
Mike Clear, Simi Valley Unified School District Assistant Superintendent for Business and Facilities. What I'm asking for is more direction from the state on multi-year projections for school districts. And that has to do with, under the revenue limit model, you would have a base revenue limit for ADA, at COLA. In recent years, we had deficit factors. At least you had a number that you could use for multi-year projection. Under the local controlled funding formula, and if the state is a pay-as-you-go, and a 3% minimum reserve, is 3% enough? Because if the state were to decrease funding in future years, obviously we don't want that to happen, and there's an 8-year implementation, but what do school districts do for multi-year projections for their budgets, their interim reports? And of course, that affects the collective bargaining process with our professional associations, so we'd like more direction from the state on that. And secondly, is special education. The LCFF doesn't address special education funding, which is a huge impact on, I think, most of us in the room, and we all have encroachments onto, which would now be our base funding. So special education is something we would like to see addressed. Thank you.
So after Joel, Fred Kendall, and then Jacqueline Smith Kunkelman and Mary Ransom.
Good morning. I'm Joel Shawn. I'm the superintendent of Arcadia Unified. Thanks for the opportunity to provide input. I think we've already heard there's sort of two kinds of feedback you're going to get. There's big picture stuff, and then there's maybe more direct, specific stuff. And maybe as superintendent, you kind of get yourself narrowly focused on what you got to implement right away. Well, school's going to start for most of us, or has started. And right now, we're dealing with the regulations, or at least the law as it stands on class size reduction. And we're really, really concerned that it really just doesn't make sense. And to be very specific about it, the idea that any one given classroom school can create an average that doesn't meet that target, which we understand is a 12.5% target, that if you don't meet that target and you can't staff up to do that, you're going to lose your entire CSR add-on, just doesn't make sense. So we're strongly advocating that quickly regulations be put in place that look at that at least as a district-wide average to address that. And this is something we think can be fixed very quickly. And in all things that are simple, the devil's still in the details. Lastly, for those of us that are in an ROP consortium with LA County, the idea of moving from ROP to CTE, and the county has guaranteed a hold harmless for 2 years. We see a funding cliff coming in 2 years and would like a reconsideration of how the CTE add-on gets computed so that, in fact, we're held harmless for the amount of funds that we're currently receiving under ROP. Thank you very much.
My name is Fred Kendall, Tredruca Hills High School, Mission Viejo. I'm just a regular classroom teacher, so my perspective is actually opposite from everybody here in the suit. In a way, and I'm actually the guy who's going to shoulder the burden of how you guys screw this up, like so many other things we do. But I just ask you to please quit funding, quit giving the flexibility to our school districts to fund programs that don't exist and put the money back to the classroom where we want it. And I do support the last speaker about the CTE and ROP programs, which are, we have tens of thousands of jobs that go unfilled because our kids aren't skilled enough to go into those positions, and mostly because they don't know that they have the capability to be able to do that. We could have some of the great welders, some of the great machinists who never get that opportunity in classrooms to find out what their skill is. Thank you.
I'm Jacqueline Smith Conkelton. I'm a surrogate parent for LAUSD. I'm an advocate and an activist for children with special needs. I'm asking that when you put this budget together, take out the flexibility for special ed kids, special needs kids. You put that flexibility in there, and they don't get the services they need. And many of these kids are suffering because they don't have the academics that they need. They teach them skills. And for instance, they teach them how to make coffee and to sell it. But then they don't have the skills to know that when you give $5 to someone, you need to give them $3 back. So I need to make sure these kids have academics there for them, and they also should be required to have the technology they have. I sat in IEPs all this summer, and I'm devastated at the thought that someone's going to tell me they made a judgment call on a child's education. You can't make a judgment call. You need to give them the opportunity to have the right equipment, academics that they need to be successful. I wouldn't want nobody to make a judgment call on me, and I don't think these kids require this. They can't talk, but they have a way of communicating. People that don't know these kids don't realize that just because they can't say yes or no, they still can communicate with you. And I'm hoping that we understand what our budget is for these children so that the parents will know. We want to make sure the people that train, the parents, because the parents need more teaching, more training, that they are qualified to train. I don't like going to a meeting when someone tells me we're learning together. I've been doing this for 25 years. I've already learned this. I'm a foster kid parent. I've raised 6 boys, special needs boys. And I don't need to have nobody standing in front of me telling me we're learning together. They're supposed to know this. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Mary Ransom. I'm from Linwood Unified School District. I'm a parent. I'm also president of the District African American Parent Council. And I would just like to say in the budget, I think it should be a set portion for African American students and or legally put into law that they should have a portion either under the VLAC a written amendment or their own, because test scores have shown that African American students at this point in time in the state of California, and probably to the country, are testing lower than most EL students. So I think we should set aside budget monies for this need and any other need for any other ethnic group. So that is what I'm here for today.
So next is Andrea Zetlin, followed by William Bass, Carrie Hanel, and then Sandy Escobedo, and we'll then turn it over to San Diego.
I'm Andrea Zetlin. Can you hear me? I'm Andrea Zetlin from California State University, Los Angeles, and I'm here to represent the Special Education Intern Program. Intern programs have essentially been wiped out from any kind of state funding because of LPCC. These are teacher preparation programs that put teachers in class, individuals in classrooms while they're earning their teaching credential. And what we've done is really attracted second career individuals to this field, and we've brought them into teacher shortage areas, so special education, math, science. At Cal State LA, we have 5 different special education intern programs. 2 of them, the Visual Impairments Program and the Physical and Health Impairments Program, are the only programs in Southern California. We have teachers in these programs, interns in these programs, who are teaching as far as Imperial County, San Luis Obispo, Placer County, and they're all students at Cal State LA in the teacher intern program. The funding for the program, and this is what I think the state didn't quite understand, the funding for the program actually went to an individual school district who served as our fiscal agent. And then the individual school district allowed us to contract the money in order to coordinate and organize the program. We served interns in over 160 districts, county offices of education, non-public schools, charter schools throughout the southern half of the state. What happened with the funding is it was completely lost with LPCC. The school district no longer received the money and no longer allowed us to subcontract the money from them. Without this funding, we've taken an excellent program for training teachers in difficult to staff areas like special education, as I said, math and science. And we've really been forced to scale down this program. And just remember that we've had an 80% retention rate with the intern program, and that's now possibly in jeopardy. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sandy Escobedo. I'm a senior policy analyst with the Advancement Project, and I'm also a proud graduate of the Los Angeles Unified School District. I'm here to comment on how this is a historic opportunity to really leverage these resources that will be allocated by way of the LCFF formula to really focus on the needs of our youngest students. Third grade reading scores are a predictor for future academic success, and access to early childhood education is a strategy that ensures that our third grade readers will learn to read by the time they get there and will graduate from college by the time they go through our K-12 system. Additionally, I would also like to reinforce the importance of involving parents and communities in this process to ensure accountability and transparency in the allocation of these funds. And lastly, we must not forget the importance of serving the needs of our students that are in the foster care system, as this is a population that has for far too long been neglected, and now's the time to really ensure that they reach their full potential. Thank you.
After Carrie Hanel, we had William Bass. If William is here, please step us down.
Good morning. This is Carrie Hanel. I'm with the Education Trust West, an education civil rights organization seeking to identify closing the opportunity gaps for students in California. LCFF is about equity, and we thank everyone who had a hand in moving forward an equity-based agenda when it comes to school finance reform. But while LCFF eliminates inequities between districts, it does little to address inequities within districts between schools. For example, in nearby Long Beach, we know that teachers in the most disadvantaged schools are paid about $6,000 less than teachers in the least needy schools, and this means that there are huge gaps in the money actually received and spent in high poverty versus low poverty schools. Therefore, with LCFF, as we move into implementation, we need strong assurances the money generated by students will actually be spent on them in their school buildings. The state board regulations should additionally require that districts minimally spend on disadvantaged students what they spent last year, so a maintenance of effort to some extent. And we think it would be helpful to clarify that the monies that districts are receiving from the state now are governed under LCFF now. That means this is the existing law and the requirements kick in immediately, not in the future upon full implementation. I know this is the intent of the law. I don't know if it's entirely clear to all school districts. And finally, we recommend that as districts receive the money under this new regime, they continue to plan and determine how to spend money on disadvantaged students. And we encourage them to not make commitments right now that might be encroached upon by future obligations that will come after the regulatory process. Thank you.
So with that, we're going to turn it over to our San Diego audience. Are there comments from San Diego?
Good morning, Los Angeles County Office of Education. We do have 5 speakers, I believe, for topic number 1. I'm going to turn on our microphone, and if we could prepare to have Scott Patterson, Fran Zumwalt, and is it Rachel Gregg to be our first 3 speakers on topic 1. I think that's on. That's great. Okay. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Scott Patterson. I'm the Deputy Superintendent with Grossmont Union High School District, and I think I speak for most in the field when I say that we certainly support the spirit of flexibility and local control that's embedded in LCFF. And in that spirit, I'm a little concerned and worry that we may, in the case of the supplemental and concentration grant, students return to the old categorical ways. So I would urge the drafters and the crafters of the regulations to consider what's a potential concern of mine, and that is that you could see school districts in circumstances where over time as we implement LCFF, they are required to grow and produce new programs for these populations of kids at the same time that they are shrinking or dismantling their regular education programs. I don't know that that's going to occur, but it seems to me that that's a possible outcome. If that result were to occur, I think that would be very odd, and I don't think we'd have an easy time explaining that to our students, communities, and parents overall. Second has to do with the definition of the LEA with regard to the MOE requirement on the ROP CTE programs. In counties such as San Diego, where those dollars come through our county office, if the LEA is defined as the county office rather than the school districts who have those dollars distributed to them, there could be a much different result if those dollars were redistributed. So again, I would urge that the LEA definition in this circumstance be defined
20 seconds.
As the school district level. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Fran Zumwalt, and I'm the president of the Grossmont Teachers Association. I'm not shy to say the Teachers Union. And I would like to support Estelle Lemieux's comments that she made in LA. We're very concerned that the LCFF emergency regulations will directly impact, we recognize they will directly impact how school budgets are determined. The school board, the California School Board really needs to promote a common understanding of the law, which states that money shall flow to local school districts rather than to individual school sites or students. Our concern is, if the money is going to the local school, are we going to then demand to bargain at the local school level? That creates a whole chaos system. So that really needs to not be, that needs to be clearly explained. Districts are going to receive this money, and dollars should flow to the districts, not to local school sites. Regulations for supplemental and concentration grants should be not any more restrictive than Title I funds, and regulations need to recognize that there needs to be comprehensive professional development to meet the needs of these diverse students' populations. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're looking for Rachel Gregg. She stepped out. Okay, so our next speaker would be Ramon Espinal, and then we'll have Michelle Krug, and that will end our speakers for topic 1.
Good morning, Ramon Espinal, second grade teacher, San Diego Unified School District. In the last 5 years, our district was forced to cut over $400 million. All these cuts affected thousands of teachers, nurses, and counselors, where the majority of them were pink slip, each year for the last 5 years. I greatly appreciate the wisdom of the California voters and our governor's leadership in terms of making sure that Prop 30 was passed. So this is great. Now, my concern is that the way that the money will be paid back to district, will be reimbursed to district, will be kind of too slow of a process, because our district was forced to borrow millions and millions of dollars from Wall Street, and also was forced to sell property in order to avoid cutting more and more from our budget. So my suggestion to our state superintendent, Tom Tolleson, is that we would like for him to play a leadership role in terms of working with legislators to pass legislations to speed up the process of reimbursement to our local districts, so that they can begin to repair all the damage that have been caused in the last 5 years with all these budget cuts. So this is very important for us. Otherwise,
20 seconds.
the momentum in terms of achievement that we are attaining in our district will not be kind of speed up or accelerated. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Michelle, here, let me hand this to you.
Much easier, thank you. I'm Michelle Krug, a member of Educate for the Future. And my question or desire for clarification when you do write the regulations has to do with the adult ed and the ROP classes. My concern is that money will be taken out of either the K through 12. It's unclear, because I know at least one school district here in this county commingles those numbers between the ROP and the adult ed, and with the potential that adult ed will be done jointly with the community college district. I just wanted to make sure that this is clarified so that we don't lose any of it, but that there is clarification. Thanks.
Thank you, Michelle. That ends our speakers here at San Diego County COE. Janelle.
Thank you, Ann. So up next, we're going to move then to topic 2, which is local control accountability plans. And at this point, we will have Nina Boyd, Ruth Kusick, and David Simons, please.
Good morning. My name is Nina Boyd. I am the Associate Superintendent for the Orange County Department of Education, and I'm here representing Orange County Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Alan Harris, our office, and our respective districts. We'd like to thank you for this opportunity to provide input. First, we'd like to thank the governor and the legislature for recognizing the need for increased local control and funds for students in California. Their recognition to provide additional funding for economically disadvantaged students, EL, and foster youth will help close the achievement gap. We believe the measurements identified under the LCAP will provide for all student needs being met. All of the requirements in the LCFF and the LCAP legislation indicate an intent to allow flexibility and local control in the implementation. Clearly, the intent of the legislature was to allow parents, administrators, teachers, and members of local communities to provide input in developing these plans. We recognize that school districts and communities throughout California have different and unique needs, and it is important that a one-size-fits-all template is not developed or implemented. Governing boards of local school districts have the most current information related to their respective districts. Local control will provide a mechanism for districts to meet the needs of their unique student population. county offices of ed will be a resource to school districts and are gearing up to ensure that their staff are knowledgeable and can accurately review and advise districts on their accountability plans. We believe the appropriate measurements have been identified for the development of these plans. Thank you.
And before our next speaker speaks, we have two people in the remote room, and I'd like to make sure they come over in time to comment. Chantel Dakani and Maisie Chin.
Good morning. My name is Ruth Cusick. I'm a staff attorney at Public Counsel Law Center. And I'm the lead attorney on our organization's School Push-Out Reversal Project. I'm here to speak about one of the 8 state priorities in the Local Control Accountability Plan, School Climate, which asks districts to look at suspension rates, expulsion rates, and other local measures, including surveys of students, parents, and teachers on the sense of school safety and school connectedness. We work throughout Los Angeles County, but do a lot of reform work on school discipline and school climate with Los Angeles Unified. Los Angeles Unified has made significant progress on decreasing suspension rates, but aggregate district suspension rates mask tragic racial disproportionality in our district. Even though in a sample of South LA schools, a majority of middle and high schools suspension rates were below 10%. A significant number of those schools had African American suspension rates above 25%, and in a handful of our top suspending schools in South LA, there are African American suspension rates above 60% in many of these schools. We have to look underneath some of these data points and ensure that the local measures include directly engaging with families and students about school safety and school climate. I want to give a quick example of one of my clients. Desiree was in 7th grade last year, and she, along with the other African American students in her class, were made to sit facing the wall when they had been talking to each other. Desiree had unmet special education needs, but had been failing school for over 3 years, had never been assessed.
David Simmons, Assistant Superintendent of Personnel Services for Ventura County Office of Education. July 16th, representatives of several stakeholder groups, including SECESA, CSBA, CTA, CFT, SECESA, and AXA, as well as Public Advocate, met at the Commission on Teacher Credentialing to discuss the implications of the LCFF. We did not come to any conclusions because none of us had the authority to come to conclusions, but we did identify a lot of issues that need to be dealt with by the LCAP. We felt that the 8 specified state priorities embedded in each LEA's accountability plan cannot be supported in the absence of systematic induction of new employees, including administrators and teachers. As a state, we should ensure that all new teachers and administrators, regardless of their status and location, must be provided an equitable access to induction as new employees. The LCAP requirements ought to attend to the new teacher development, both as a strategy and as a goal of using the regulatory process. We're not saying how that should be, merely that it should attend to those needs. Induction clear programs have been shown to improve retention, integration, and continual growth for teachers and in other states for administrators. There will be a significant cost implication of increased turnover resulting from the failure to invest in induction for those new employees. Thank you.
Has Chantel Dakani arrived? Yes, okay. After Chantel, we'll have Mary Johnson, Ernesto Saldana, and Ben Egan.
Hi, my name is Chantal Bachani from Public Counsel Law Center, and I'm an education attorney, work with transition age foster youth. We all understand in this room the dismal outcomes of educational outcomes of foster youth. We also all understand that there are multiple systems in place causing this. So we're really excited about the flexible funding for school districts, but we're hoping that the money actually gets used towards targeted for training of district and school staff. And so we know it's hard enough for foster youth to graduate, but I think we as adults in their lives, we could do better. And so I'm going to turn it over to one of our clients, Marbella Munoz Garcia, so she can actually share some of her own real life experiences because I haven't heard from youth yet. So, Marbella.
foster care is hard because I don't have control of the situation I'm in each time I'm forced to move schools. As it is, it's hard to graduate high school, especially having to change schools several times in one semester. Also, working with school officials who aren't trained to help me. This is why it's important to have funding and helping foster youth. I've been to 4 schools in one school semester because I've had to move to different placements. One of the things that made it difficult is keeping up with my school documents, such as transcripts. Getting a hold of the right people who know about foster specific laws would be helpful. It's been hard because I wasn't able to check out correctly from my schools to get checkout grades, and I couldn't get checked into the right classes. Because I went to 4 schools in one semester, I always kept up with my grades, and I couldn't get partial credit because I was there for a short time and the schools didn't know how to give me my partial credit. I never received the correct paperwork, so it made it harder to check into a new school. This made it more difficult to graduate on time. Some of the recommendations I have is better trained counselors who are well informed about things such as partial credit, AB 167, enrollment without immunization. Sometimes I do not have all my paperwork. Also, ways to make it easier for kids to get checked out in schools without so many complications, such as getting transcripts. I like to continue to have at least one person at each school district who is well informed on rights of foster youth. Also, better coordination between social workers and school officials each time there's a school transfer. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ernesto Saldaña, and I'm with Early Edge, California. We're very excited to see the promise of a new local control funding formula and the opportunities, especially for serving our youngest families in the state. We also believe that when we talk about the promise of greater efficiency and equity, we must begin with addressing the fact that not all kids are starting school prepared to learn. The achievement gap, as we know, starts early. Those kids who are already behind in 3rd grade, we know they started school and kindergarten behind. We know the district will be required to improve outcomes for English learners, low income, and foster children. And research shows that investing in the early years, including preschool and transitional kindergarten, is a proven way to do that. When it comes to student achievement, studies show that high-quality early childhood education resulted in improved reading and math achievement, as well as increased school readiness for English language learners. Pupil engagement, as measured by high school dropouts. Those who attend early learning programs are more likely to graduate high school on time. Important social skills, which is part of our leadership development. Early childhood education develops important social skills like self-regulation, managing emotions, resolving conflicts that can result in fewer suspensions, expulsions down the road, and are critical for leadership development. And we know parents are the key starting block for our kids. They are first teachers for our children, and early childhood education improves parental involvement, leading to greater academic success. When it comes to measuring the performance of students, we hope you will consider achievement in the early elementary years, particularly that critical developmental phase leading up to 3rd grade. Research shows that the students who don't read proficiently by 3rd grade are 4 times more likely to leave high school without a diploma. Thank you for this opportunity, school boards and districts. We hope you consider the research about early learning. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Mary Johnson. I'm the president of Parent U-Turn and also the ex-president of the LAUSD Parent Collaborative that represented over 700,000 parents. I'm here today to talk about the parent piece for this portion. I noticed when I was reading, it talked a lot about DLAC committee and school site council and about advisory. I hope that in this new way, this new concept for the 21st century, that we move away from advisory, because advisory is where they just want to hear our voice, one way. But we also want not just that the council hear our voices. We want to see some of the things that we add be implemented into action. As you know, there's no law that says that parents have to vote, because some district at this time, even the DAC doesn't exist at this time. And the one that do have a DAC, they are actually not being, as an equal partner, they're not actually voting on the Title I Part A. They're not really having to say it's a top-down model. So what is going to be different model for this moving forward? Because DAC should also be mandated, just like DLAC, for the right of the Title I parents to have a say. That's not going on right now at many districts. So I'm hoping that this new committee that the LA County might make one more parent advisory, but these be more mandated and respect parent as equal partners, not just someone for as a token to say that we have parent compliance, or just to say that we, like a meeting like today, to say that we got input from the community and yet not implement what we say today and moving forward. But if we're going to respect all parents that volunteer, we need to respect the groups like the African American Advisory Parent, the DAC, all of them is equal, not just like one group of parents. Because School Site Council is only a limited number of parents there. They have their meeting at 3 o'clock. That means most parents are working or they're picking up other kids. They are not able to attend to give input.
Thank you for your comments. After Ben Egan, we have David Benestal, Carl Schaefer, Sherry Spiegel-Coleman.
Good morning. I'm Ben Egan, Director of State and Federal Projects for Torrance Unified. Oversight and monitoring of the LCAP at the school and district level will likely result in hiring additional staff at every level, including county offices and the CDE, redirecting funding away from the classroom and the students the LCFF was intended to serve. By requiring multiple plans, significantly more areas of accountability, and a yet to be determined evaluation rubric, it is not possible to get a true estimation of the number of people that will be needed to monitor the LCAP at the local level. Under the principle of local control, new additional funding is to be targeted to specific students and personnel working directly with students to help them reach their learning goals. Will an analysis of LCAP regulations be performed to ensure that the staffing required for oversight at the district level will be less than under the previous funding model? Thank you.
My name is Carl Schaefer. I'm here representing the thousands of students who through the years have been denied the right of instruction in visual and performing arts because governing boards of school districts have been allowed to treat the arts as an optional part of the curriculum, when in fact the education code mandates that the arts be included in the curriculum. I have here a letter dated yesterday sent to county, district, and district superintendents from the state superintendent and the president of the state school board. It is asking them to begin rethinking their approach to their planning and beginning to align to the eight priorities of the state. One of those priorities says, to the extent which pupils have access to and are enrolled in a broad course of study that includes core subjects, and one of those is the visual and performing arts. I'm recommending that a portion of the funding be tied to compliance with the education code, because it will still be treated as optional unless there are teeth in this new funding. Local control is not a license to break the law, and that's what's been going on with governing boards of school districts related to the visual and performing arts.
After Carl, we'll have Maisie Chen and Cynthia Rice.
Good morning, David Benasdal. I'm Deputy Superintendent for Arcadia Unified School District, also a member of the California School Finance Reform Coalition. During the past couple of years of financial difficulties, my colleagues across the region have done a tremendous job creating intervention programs based on academic needs of all students. My concern and question is this: will the LCFF LCAP regulations be written to provide districts with flexibility to allow non-targeted students who are underachieving to attend after-school programs that would be funded by targeted student dollars. My fear is this, that the accountability language will force a separation and duplication of programs at a higher cost to the districts, running contrary to the concept of local control. Thank you.
Good morning, Shelley Spiegel-Coleman from Californians Together. And we were very excited with the governor's language in terms of wanting the LCFF to pay attention to subgroups of students who have been struggling in the past and to make sure that there are additional services and programs for those students. What we would like to see in the LCAP is a reflection of also what's happening in the budget process at the school districts. And so we think is critical is this year will set the stage for next year's LCAP planning. And so this year's budgets, if this year's budgets have ongoing expenditures, which will really use up the majority of the funds, then when people get to their LCAP planning and have to address the 8 priorities, one of them being the academic achievement of student subgroups such as English learners, poor students, and foster youth, the money left to address those other 7 or 8 priorities will be limited because of the ongoing expenditures. So the emergency regulations really need to talk about the equitable funding so that the LCAP really will have something to build upon based upon the budgets that are initiated this year. In addition, in the LCAP, we're hoping that the template really addresses the needs of language and academic needs of English learners, not as a single cohort, but as a diverse profile. We know we have newcomers all the way to long-term English learners. And so to do something different with the kind of funding we have to be really targeted about the services and programs for these students. And then the last piece is the issue of accountability and evaluation, which will be part of the rubric that the state board develops. And again, we want that to parallel what we're hoping to ask for in the template in terms of what we want to see for services for language and academic development. Thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Maisie Chen. I am Executive Director and co-founder of Cadre. We are a parent organizing institution in South Los Angeles and a proud member also of the Dignity in Schools campaign, as well as an emerging coalition of stakeholders up and down the state of California who've been working to reform school discipline. And of course, we are extremely relieved, really, that school climate is part of the local accountability plan. And we recognize that in this moment, hearing all the speakers that will inevitably talk about the huge competition for how these monies are spent and where the accountability really, really lies, I do want to urge us to recognize that the additional supplemental and concentration grants are supposed to serve the students who need the most support. And many of them are the ones that are being pushed out of school and or suspended and or chronically absent and or ticketed and arrested. And in many, many ways, we really see this as an opportunity for the local control funding formula to ensure that what this funding does and what the accountability plan does is actually cause us to focus and integrate instead of creating silos of programs and services that do take more staff and do make the money go too fast, is to actually use it to support the students who need the most support, ensure that school climate is seen as part of the floor that has to be raised in order to meet the goals of LCFF, and first and foremost to see that there are other mandates that all schools do need to address school climate issues in order to improve schools. It's happening all across the country, and we want to see this as an opportunity to put our best foot forward for these students and not get into an adult cat fight over every dollar to the point where these are the students that do not get any benefit from what is hailed as a victory for equity. And we hope we will be, as an organizing group, we have parents, we are in coalition with young people, we have eyes and ears all over the state, and we really do expect this to raise our bar on how we serve the students who normally get pushed out of school. Thank you.
So after we hear from Cynthia Rice, we'll hear from Michael Masuda and Maya Cooper.
Good morning, my name is Cynthia Rice. I'm from California Rural Legal Assistance, and these comments are submitted both on behalf of California Rural Legal Assistance, CRLA, and the CRLA Foundation. CRLA and CRLA Foundation represent parents and students in the rural districts of California. Those districts face considerable and unique challenges when it comes to funding issues, and the LCFF actually increases those challenges and doesn't necessarily decrease them. What we are here to urge today is that in the regulatory process, the state board provide direction to all districts, to rural districts as well as urban districts, about components of the local control funding plan and apportionment. Components that will specifically address what districts need to do to ensure that the monies provided under the supplemental and concentration grants are in fact spent on programs that will improve the educational opportunities for the children for whom they're intended. The regulations need to provide a roadmap that districts can use so that they don't have to hire all this staff to define all that stuff for us, so it's set on a state level. I want to harken back to the remarks made originally in the presentation about LCFF, that LCFF does not eliminate or substitute for the federal requirements with respect to both provision of services to English learners or the funding requirements that come with grants from the federal government, both of which include state, not just local or county office of education oversight. The guidelines, the regulations must address specific criteria that county offices of education are to use in evaluating programs in compliance with LCF, particularly for English learners, and the state must have an active role in oversight to fulfill its state constitutional and federal mandates with respect to English learners, because without that, the fears about flexibility that the community members like the one from Compton will come true in districts because of other budgetary pressures will allow for slippage in the use of these critical funds, and children will not be served.
Thank you. And we have two more speakers for those in San Diego. We have two more speakers here, and I understand 9 in San Diego after.
Good morning. My name is Michael Matsuda. I'm president of Californians Together. I'm also the coordinator for professional development for the Indiana High School District. As everybody in this room knows, one of the unintended consequences of the current system has been a narrowing of the curriculum. And I think the other gentleman spoke about NAPA, attested to that. And especially for long-term English learners, we've undermined their chances of becoming A through G ready and also successfully completing career tech education pathways. So with that in mind, Californians Together wants to recommend that we provide minimum standards for programs for English learners to ensure that supplemental and concentration grant funds ensure that students have the opportunity to learn English and have full access to the core curriculum, and that these funds not be supplanted by base funding. I'd like to also just point out, too, with the implementation of the new Common Core standards, that districts do not narrow the curriculum. This is very explicit in the Common Core standards that these are literacy across the curriculum, including career tech education pathways. So that's, and I also like to reference as well the same bullet point that was referenced before from the state superintendent as well as from the president of the state board, that the extent to which pupils have access to and are enrolled in a broad course of study that includes all of these core areas. So thank you very much.
Good morning, and thank you for this opportunity to comment. My name is Maya Cooper, and I'm an attorney at the National Center for Youth Law and a policy manager within their Foster Youth Education Initiative, where we work to improve the educational outcomes of foster youth. As you heard from one foster youth earlier this morning, they face a number of unique educational challenges at school. Sadly, foster youth typically demonstrate poor educational outcomes, including high rates of absenteeism, high disciplinary rates, frequent school changes, and low graduation rates. The LCFF offers an exciting opportunity to improve the way that California ensures students in foster care receive the educational supports and services that they need to help them reach their full academic potential. However, we are concerned that the initial LCFF implementation efforts that have started across the state may not be fully considering the needs of foster youth. Since foster youth were one of the 3 identified subgroups in the Educational Accountability Framework, we believe that a representative for foster youth should be invited to attend and be able to actively participate in any future LCFF implementation planning meetings. We are hopeful that moving forward, someone with expertise in the educational
and the educational needs of foster youth will be invited to attend the State Board LCFF implementation planning meetings. With respect to the local control and accountability plans, we would like to be part of these ongoing LCFF implementation planning meetings to help ensure that school districts and county offices of education develop plans that specify how they will improve the educational outcomes for foster youth. Thank you.
So we have one more speaker, Tim Stowe, and then we'll turn it over to San Diego.
I'm Tim Stowe, the Chief Academic Officer in the Torrance Unified School District, and we have questions around the implementation of the LCAP. The timelines for the LCAP and evaluation criteria rubric are not in sync, and thus it'll be difficult to develop the LCAP to align with the criteria by which districts will be evaluated. Since districts will be in the third year of the LCFF before the evaluation rubric is available, will the LCAP regulations include guidance for the inclusion of evaluation criteria for the first 2 years, or will districts be required to develop their own evaluation criteria during those first 2 years? Additionally, districts must submit their plans by July 2014, but rubrics identifying the high-quality educational program performance expectations will not be adopted until October 2015. As districts develop their LCAPs, they'll need to know and understand the clear criteria to evaluate their success, as that will really guide how they do that work. And then finally, the Smarter Balanced assessments will begin in spring 2015, and I haven't heard or seen any specifics as it relates to the evaluation criteria as it relates to the Smarter Balanced assessments comparative to the CSTs. And so if there is an intent to use the Smarter Balanced and CST results as an accountability tool, what are the plans for resolving the statistical issue of comparison so that districts can embed into their LCAPs a methodology for comparing student, school, and district assessment performance as districts transition from one assessment to the other?
So we will now turn it over to San Diego and our commenters in San Diego.
Okay, and we apologize for any squeaking of microphones. We're having, I think, a little audio issue here, but so we're going to switch microphones. But right now we have Margaret Shelley, right? And then our next speakers will be Emma Turner, followed by David Page.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Margaret Shelley. I'm the Senior Labor Relations Representative with California School Employees Association. As you know, frontline workers, classified school employees, have firsthand knowledge of what works and what doesn't. The design of local plans, budgets, and accountability measures should include the input and involvement of classified employees. Classified staff will be involved in carrying out virtually all aspects of the programs designed to reach these students. In most districts, classified employees will be the ones who are tracking data and producing reports to measure progress on key metrics. Input from the classified staff can improve the efficiency, quality, and effectiveness of district programs. Training and professional development for classified employees also will help to ensure successful implementation. Thank you.
Good morning. Again, my name is Emma Turner, and I'm on the board of directors for California School Board Association. As well, I am vice president of the La Mesa Spring Valley School District. Today, I'm here to speak on behalf of the California School Board Association. I have a couple of comments on LCAP. We support districts aligning their local control accountability plan to their goals for LCFF. However, we want to ensure that when writing the regulations, you take into account that we do not want the County Office of Education to be overly zealous in their review. In fact, limit the review to aligning the budget with the goals and leave the how we spend our money to the local districts with parental input, with community input. And what the last one is, the accountability reports should be simple whenever possible and inclusive. We have a lot of data out there already. Do we really need to collect more data about achievement? Can we use what we already have out there for reportability? Thank you.
My name is David Page. I'm a parent at San Diego Unified,
and I work with a group of parents in an organization known as Up for Ed. I'm here to speak to you regarding the value of the LEA plan and the School Site Council Single Plan for Student Achievement. The Single Plan for Student Achievement already includes multiple groups from the school site, classified employees and others. It requires a wide involvement with parents and others from the school site, to include the Dad's Club and everyone else, to come up with a single plan for student achievement. We've been the road of multiple plans. San Diego Unified does not have the time or ability to draw parents to 186 different parent meetings and then double that for 2 different plans, nor does it have the time or training available for the LEA plan to be trained and the district's plan as well. So the combination of the 2 is allowable within law. As a matter of fact, the school site council's plan allows for training funds to be spent at the school site level to involve the parents, train the teachers, train the staff, and would be a better, more robust approach to this plan. If necessary, the LCAP could be an addendum to the single plan for student achievement, but we would request that you have a single plan that addresses all of the needs. And the single plan of student achievement allows for the inclusion of multiple measurements. It allows for mid-year measurements. So if you're going to measure A through G or graduation rates, it allows for you to have that opportunity to mid-year find out how you're doing with that and create results by the end of the year, so students aren't left behind at the end of the year. You can make adjustments mid-year. So by using those templates that have been worked out over the years, it's a better approach to all those aspects. Significantly on top of that, there is a significant need. If you're going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on professional development, we need to have a measurement or a response to instruction for the staff that receives the training. That there needs to be some kind of requirement and accountability to do classroom observations to see to it that the millions of dollars we spent on professional development result in some change in instruction in the classroom. If we're going to spend that money, we need to see what it turns into. Thank you.
Michelle, you're next up, and let me give this microphone to you. Michelle, you'll be followed by Sarah Gerling, Robert Alacantar, and Kelly Moores.
Thank you, Michelle Krug again, Educate for the Future. I would like to see, in terms of the accountability, that the County Board of Ed, as Emma had mentioned, be restricted, well, not restricted, but specified as to what it is that they are actually responsible to attest to. And I would also like there to be an appeal process on a state level. I think that there should be overall reviewing on the state level, or the ability that if there's a difference between the how the county board sees it in a particular county, that there be an appeal process to a state agency that would be able to review from there. Thanks.
Michelle. My name is Sarah Gerling, and I'm a parent of 3 children, 2 of which are in future, which is to acknowledge members of the California Legislature, Governor Brown, and we're pleased to be a part of this major transformation in our great state's public education system. Educate for the Future has grown from just a few supporters to a coalition of 100+ members and broader network. Educate for the Future was really born because parents like myself wanted to better understand and help our local schools overcome challenges faced, such as funds shortages, classroom size, academic supports that are needed to increase achievement, especially in district areas where students live with food, shelter, and healthcare insecurity. We are going to remain vigilant over the LCFF implementation phase. We'll be closely monitoring regulatory processes as they evolve, because we want to ensure that funds are concentrated in areas with students living in poverty and those with special needs. We're cautious, but we're also very excited. And with local control accountability plans not required to be in place until July of 2014, districts could decide now to use money in ways that do not help its highest need students. And so we want to be vigilant over that process. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Kelly Moores. I'm a 4th-term school board member from Carlsbad Unified.
And my concern isn't primarily with the development of the plans to spend these LCFF funds, but with the subsequent evaluation of the effectiveness of these plans. LCFF's intent is to direct resources to meet the needs of special populations. Districts should have maximum flexibility to decide how to best use these funds and should then be accountable for the results achieved by these decisions. I'm hopeful that the focus of accountability will not be just on what will be provided, but will significantly measure what has been accomplished by these plans. The logical progression should be that districts will then be expected to use these results in subsequent allocations of their funds. Measuring what matters will give tools to school boards to be accountable to their local communities for truly improving achievement for the targeted students, which is, after all, the intent of LCFF.
Thank you. Is Robert Alacantar here? Well, we're going to move forward, and our final two speakers actually would be Jay Steiger and Imani Robinson. Is Jay here?
Hi, my name is Jay Steiger. I'm Vice President for Legislation for the Mount Helix Council of PTAs, which is a subgroup of the 9th District PTA in San Diego, and we're representing the concerns of the California State PTA. Meaningful parent and community engagement does take time, and the timeline for development of the budgets this year and the LCAPs going forward should be extended. Districts should now begin to communicate the process of determining those allocations and program decisions. Parent and community engagement opportunities should be extended beyond the districts to the school sites. The entire school community, including parent associations, teachers, school site councils, DACs, and other entities, must have the opportunity to provide input and review the LCAP spending plans to confirm that the plans are in alignment with the stated goals and local school priorities. Now, some districts have been very proactive in the past in seeking parent input, but many have not. So PTA challenges districts to do better with that, and would like LCAP to, or would like the LCFF program to put that into some more concrete language. Now, districts should not simply provide pre-written plans with a request for parent sign-off. That just doesn't work. Parents must be partners in the development of these plans, and we basically support what the very wise woman from Los Angeles said about the partnership on that. School communities must have a clear role in providing input on how base grants, supplemental, and concentration grants will be spent. And so what we'd like to ask is, how will the LCAP link to student achievement? What will happen for schools who don't meet those goals? How long will it take for interventions to occur? And let's have a clear process so that parents know, what will this mean for my child? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Imani Robinson. I'm a parent of 3 San Diego Unified School District students. One graduated from Scripps, and my other 2 just were promoted to 6th grade, and one was a straight A student. He's a GATE student. My other son has an IEP, and he's advanced in math and science. And how that happened is I had to spend at least 4 days to 6 days a week on campus to participate in tutoring programs. As a Title I parent, that's very difficult. Just to ride the bus of a family of 4 would be $26 in San Diego. My sons never were able to participate in Old Town, Balboa Parks, and 6th grade camp they're going to has also been cut. It took 2 years for me to get a book club, only for the next year for us not to have a librarian, because a librarian didn't want to get hired for 1 day a week, which our budget allotted. We are not in, according to the San Diego Unified monitoring notification, we are not in compliance for parent involvement. So that means our funds are not properly used for parent involvement. I was on the Title I team for Title I for Title I funds, and we've already been approved for parent centers, which are not being funded as well, which would also help parents to participate in their students' achievement. Sports cost students. In a public school, it should not cost. There was a shooting. One of my son's friends was shot yesterday or 2 days ago, and my son said, "Mom, I just spoke to his mom, and I just spoke to him the day before. And, you know, Mom, if I wasn't at football practice, I would have been out there with them." So what I'm saying is, stop adding funds to payroll, and please restore programs, and stop
allowing students of communities where kids are being bused in and the funds are being used in the community, they're being bused in, but a bus is not allowed for them to participate in the after-school programs. And they also have to pay for after-school programs. Thank you.
Janelle, we'll turn that back to you. That concludes our speaker list, pardon me, for topic 2.
Thank you. So we will move now to topic 3, which is transparency and community involvement. I'll invite Liza Go, Manuel Urita, and Bill Rink to come and make their comments.
Good morning. My name is Liza Go, and I am with the California School Employees Association. A few points regarding classified employees in schools. As parents with school children of their own, classified school employees are key stakeholders who want to see our schools do better. This is an opportunity to improve programs and services for students. Classified employees play a fundamental role in the success or failure of this transition. Classified employees are a vital link between schools and parents. They provide information, translation, interpretation services. They also arrange for social services, coordinate with law enforcement, and other local agencies. As parents and community members, classified employees have insight into important family and cultural factors that impact student success. Unfortunately, sometimes classified employees are overlooked in the composition of school site councils. They rarely have a voice and a vote in critical issues such as school budgets, charter school conversions, or school reconstitutions. Classified staff can work effectively with other parents and community members to make sure the school district meets the community's needs. So please do not forget to include them in your community involvement and transparency.
Good morning. My name is Manuel Urrutia, and I am here as a concerned citizen who is following Professor Cruz's suggestion that people will have to get active at the local level to make this meet their needs, this being LCFF. You ask about transparency. If there is to be true transparency, there is a need for standards on how districts report their budgets. If you were wanting to read at a budget right now, you can't find your way through. They must also be available through the internet on near real time. We don't need them a year after the fact. And must contain all information needed to be understood by parents and taxpayers. No obscure codes and untraceable fund origins. You can't find anything. If you want accountability, you can't track it down to the source. Community participation. True community participation in budgetary matters will be, in my opinion, very difficult to implement. Why? Because the bureaucracy guards turf jealously. This happens from the local school superintendent all the way up to the superintendent. Principal. I have no idea how you are going to mandate something that every insider in every district does not want. But we sorely need it as parents and taxpayers based on my experience, which has not been that wonderful. I do hope that you are able to create a good roadmap for that. I know that the district is a sub-awardee, as you pointed out earlier, but unless you figure out how to extend this to the local school, this is not going to work, because the impact of the LCFF is where it's going to be found, at the local school. Absent that, there will be no true community participation. One last thing I wanted to add. People have talked about the Title I regulations and all that. Those are actually non-regulatory guidance. They're not really law.
And after we have Bill, it'll be Mary Johnson, Jacqueline Smith-Colton, Megan Kerr.
Good morning. My name is Bill Ring. I'm a longtime parent leader, parent advocate. I'm currently a member of Parents Across America and past chairperson of the LAUSD Parent Collaborative as well. I'm concerned that so much of, as some others have said, so much of the heavy lifting around all of this has been left to the State Board of Ed. I have lots of questions as someone who has provided about 20 years worth of time in helping parents how do we make sure that we're clear, and how clear do the LCFF accountability plans need to be to make sure that expenditures that are aligned with specific programs and activities are articulated at the school level for families, staff, and the community? And I'd like to also ask about the protocol to notify and authentically engage communities to meet the intentions of the LCFF. My experience as a parent and as a trainer, as an educator, parent educator, and a leader has shown that we do a very poor job of monitoring and evaluating almost anything that we do. So I'd like to leave you with something that I picked up during the discussions on teacher effectiveness, something called McNamara's fallacy. The first step is to measure what we can easily measure. The second step is to disregard that which can't easily be measured or give it an arbitrary quantitative value. The third step is to presume that what can't be measured easily really isn't important. So that's blindness. And the fourth step is to say that what can't easily be measured really doesn't exist. In other words, instead of trying to measure what's important, we decide that what's easiest to measure is most important. So if this is supposed to work, we need to be smarter than this. Let's not fall victim to that. Thank you.
I'm Jacqueline Smith-Humpleton. I'm a parent, adopted parent, a foster parent, legal guardian parent, and I gave birth. And I've trained parents, and I want to make sure that all of our parents are trained. You know, a trained parent sitting down and having a discussion is a quality there, because they can give you their insight of stuff. But we don't want to train our parents. We want to pick the people that don't understand and put them on the committees and tell them anything, and they believe it. I want our parents to be trained. LAUSD used to really train our parents. When you sat down with a parent, you really had a conversation about something that was worth talking about. We don't do that anymore. We also need to make sure that they understand the process of what they're talking about. But if they're not trained, they don't understand the process. You tell them anything and they believe that. And we need an advisory committee. I don't care what you name it, but it needs to be an advisory committee, because each school tells their parents what they want them to know. They know the parents don't understand, so they tell them anything. They need to have people that come from the advisory committee come to that meeting and say, no, that's not how that goes. But if they don't know that, they can't say that. Also, all schools should have a parent center. That's a good place to go, to have a parent center so somebody can talk to you about what you need to know. And we need to have equity in talking. When we decide something, we need to make sure that it's followed through. Not just sign your name. I done signed my name so many times I forgot how to spell my name, because everywhere I go, they want me to sign my name. I want our parents to have the right to be able there to help their children. And most of all, there needs to be a committee for African American parents. We already know they're below the scale for the children. We need to have parents there to represent their children. And that's a must. So when you're talking to them, make sure that's a must.
Thank you. One last call for Mary Johnson.
I want to replace Mary Johnson.
Okay.
Thank you.
And after we hear from Mary Johnson's replacement, we will hear from Tony Hicks, Mary Ransom, and Francesca Gonzalez.
Good morning. My name is Megan Kerr. I'm a parent at Long Beach Unified School District of 3 students. I'm a member of Educate Our State, the local PTA, the local district PTA. I'm acutely aware this morning that we are a room full of adults in many places, and I saw 3 children earlier and the young woman who spoke who is a foster youth, and I'm deeply grateful for them coming and being present to this. Because local control offers a great opportunity for local communities to develop programs that serve the unique needs of students in our communities. It also creates the possibility for abuse and failure if there's not true stakeholder involvement and measures that ensure transparency and accountability. It's why it's critical that communities demand this transparency and accountability so they can understand where the money's going and how it's serving our students. And then back to our students. Students are the true and largest stakeholders in the state education system. There's 6.2 of them, and they are our biggest stakeholders. And it's vital that community, parent, and family involvement, whatever that family looks like, is critical to our education system. Parent involvement under local control should include reporting of actual numbers or percentages of parents actively engaged at school sites, and school site and district advisory and regulatory committees not just a district's efforts or promotions of parental input and participation. As true stakeholders, they need to have defined structured roles and stipulate the regulations that ensure they have a voice as we move forward with LCFF, such as roles on regulatory or development committees at the school level, not just secondary or advisory roles. They need to be suggested that we require them being in early brainstorming and decision-making, such as the LCAP, and require that the district committees should be inclusionary, allowing maximum participation of parents. We are serving our students, my students, all of our students, and I would ask that we remember that there's 6.2 million of them.
Good morning, my name is Roberto Fonseca. I'm a parent. I have 2 children in LAUSD. And I'm here because of, I always believe that the times change need to happen, okay? But with change comes the fundamental part of which is transparency. And unfortunately, that's one of the pieces that in almost every organization they speak of, but a lot of the time it's not really executed. Let me explain to you what happened in LAUSD in the last couple of years. You spoke about the issue, and I do believe you mentioned that the requirement for committees still be there, which is Title I, Title III. Yet Title I has not existed in LAUSD for the last couple of years, and yet over $300 million coming to the district, and at least 1% of the Section 1118 of NCLB stipulate that it goes to parents. It hasn't happened, so I don't know where the money went. Second part, I want to make sure that transparency. You create those committees. What happened with those committees? You bring those parents in. First thing that you need to train them. You don't train them. Even the state came over to my school once, and the first question that they asked, did they train you right? Did they decide you to become a member of this committee? They said no. Because they don't do that. They don't want to do this. It's intentionally done. They want ignorance to be part of us. And that is something that needs to be corrected. The other part that needs to happen is you need to really make sure translation is available to all those groups where at least 30, I think the state mandate 15% of it should be given into the language of the group that is the most in the school, and that doesn't happen in LAUSD. In most cases, we have to fight to have somebody to come and translate into Spanish in particular cases. So I need to understand this. If we're really going to work transparently, you need to give parents the proper rights. And the proper right is an equal partner, not as a friend, not as a partner that doesn't know what the other one is doing. So I want you to make sure that when you use transparency, make sure that when you go to the school and ask for the budget, that they give it to me. They don't come to me and say, you know what, come back next time or next year to do so. So please make sure that this only that is done in a way that it is monitored. This should be monitored independently of the school district. So in order for this to work, thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Tony Hicks. I'm a longtime parent educator, a parent of 3 children who have successfully moved out of the K-12 system, gone to college, and have their own lives now. Thank God. That's what this is all about, right? But I'm here today. I represent several organizations, but today I'm just going to wrote down on the chart that Western Region Council on Educating Black Children, I'm the current interim president of that group. Is made up of educators, clergy, community people, and business throughout California. So my comments on this topic overlap with some of the others dealing with the funding, but we're talking about transparency and parent community involvement. At the state level, I go to Sacramento a few times a year, and we talk to legislators about how to make things better down here in the LA area. And I talk to legislators about mandating parent involvement. You know, it's interesting that we have laws that require students to go to school. Nobody objects to that. But there's no real laws or regulations and policy that have the same impact in engaging parents. There's not. If a parent doesn't want to come to the school because you ask them to come, we can't go drag them. You can't take the police and bring them to the school. It doesn't work that way. There's no real laws, no teeth into parent engagement. At the private schools, they do that because you're paying for it and they require it. That's why they can do better than the public school system overall.
20 seconds.
Okay, so you talk about equity. When you organize these meetings, it's interesting that you always put the community and the parent piece always last. So by the time we get up, a lot of people are gone, including in the San Diego area. So next time you have the meeting, you might want to start with that piece first. Okay. Thank you.
Hello, good morning. My name is Francesca Gonzalez, and I'm an attorney with California Rural Legal Assistance. We serve farm workers in every county and represent students and parents in some of the most rural counties and school districts, which disproportionately educate some of the higher numbers of English learners in our state, higher numbers of low-income students as well. And parents and students within our service areas are routinely excluded from local decision-making processes that impact the education of children due to language and other access, language barriers and other access issues. It is of critical importance that the regulations developed by the State Board of Education articulate specific steps that districts must take to ensure that the districts meaningfully involve and include parents, particularly parents of English learners and low-income students, in the development of local control accountability plans, specifically through removing language barriers and ensuring other accommodations for access, as well as defining the duties of the district English learner advisory councils as they relate to the provision of services to English learners, and also in the development, implementation, and oversight of LCAPs. In addition, we urge that the regulations provide minimum standards for oversight activities that have been delegated to the county offices of education. Thank you.
So last call for Mary Ransom. Mary here. Daisy Amezcua and Sonia Lucchini and Braxo Banaz. And the last vote. So do we have Daisy? All right.
Good morning, good afternoon, I don't know the time yet, sorry. My name is Daisy Amezcua. I'm an organizer with Cadre, Community Asset Development, Redefining Education. We're in South Central Los Angeles. I'm here representing our members who unfortunately weren't able to come here today because of the time and there's no translation. So our members want to see, what our members want to see is true parent participation, true parent participation where parents are viewed as equal partners, as allies, and as an asset, and not as checks marks, as many have been very vocal and voiced right before me. With that said, how will parent roles look like in creating LCFF plan at the district and school site level, and also accountability? Our parents want to have true voices, and they want their visions to be implemented within creating these plans, and also within accountability. Our parents at Cadre and like others in our community are able to look at data and do analysis. So we want true parent engagement, not just being checked off as signing in, right, and here's the check mark, got 20 parents, and that's good enough for us, right? So what is it going to take? How is that going to look like? And what are we going to do? Thank you.
Just a point of clarification, we do have a translator here, and they have moved to the satellite extra room at request. So.
A short person one. Sonia Lucchini, I'm a parent volunteer. I've been an advocate for students with disabilities. I have a son in college now who's high-functioning autism, and I'm currently the chair of LA Unified's Special Education Community Advisory Committee. And I agree with many of the parents here today that, and special education is like the poor stepchild of all of these subgroups. No matter what, even if you're a Title I kid, you're still, if you're special ed, you're at the bottom of the barrel and you're told, go away, you've got your own IDEA money. But the federal government's in sequester. There's tons of money that hasn't been released and probably won't be. So since DC's not doing their job, California has to step up and do it for us. And my biggest first question before we get into all this LCFF stuff is, a couple of days ago, we were granted a waiver for 7 districts, and LA Unified's included in that. What does that mean for accountability under LCFF, and what does it mean for accountability with students with disabilities? Apparently we have a different set of parameters now with the SEA waiver, but I have no idea what that means for LCFF. And we still don't address special education with LCFF as we should. So I'm really concerned because the decisions are being placed on districts when they're still trying to figure out the cuts from 2007 to 2008. The governor wants local accountability, but the parents really don't have a voice, as parents have been telling you today. And charters are taking more ADA away from special education. We're receiving less funding,
20 seconds.
but the special education costs have risen. So ADA has dropped, yet the needs of services continue to increase for these children. And as I said, LCFF might not mean anything if the ESEA waiver is going to counteract everything with these other 7 districts. So I'd like clarification on that. Thank you.
So following our next speaker, we'll have Jesus Holding and Stephanie Houston and Jan Korea, and that will conclude here the folks we have in LA County, and we'll turn it over to San Diego.
Good morning, my name is Braxton Ibanez. I heard about this meeting from families in the schools in Los Angeles, which I'm a parent ambassador from them. I'm also the parent policy chair for Riverside County Office of Education for the Head Start Act. And I'm a parent of a pre-K and a second grader on the Palm Springs Unified School District in Riverside County. So I drove 100 miles just to be here to say what I want to say. First, I support the local control funding formula. It is the first step in the right direction for getting more money to kids who need it the most. There are far too many disadvantaged students who are English learners and foster kids who need the extra support. But before anything gets implemented, I would like to ask you one question. How are you going to hold the school districts accountable to a higher standard that will require them to engage parents in a better and more meaningful way than some of them they already do? I ask this because too few schools know how to make parents feel welcome. Too few schools offer information in a way that parents can't understand, and some can. And too few schools invite parents to take on roles where they support not just their child, but their child's school as well. If LCFF is expected to be successful, we need all schools to be parent-friendly. We need schools to be encouraging parents to get involved in their child's school as decision makers, advocates, and real partners, not just a figure in there.
Fine.
Thank you.
Good morning, Jesus Holguin. I'm a board member with the Moreno Valley Unified School District in Riverside County, and I'm also the Vice President of the California School Boards Association. And I'm here this morning on behalf of CSBA representing 5,000 school board members, almost 1,000 school districts. And the message is that we welcome the adoption of the local control funding formula, and we welcome the opportunities that the LCFF brings with that adoption. We're also aware of all the increased responsibility that the implementation of this LCFF brings with that, but we are ready to take the challenge. We are willing to work with the districts, with the administration of every school district, so that this implementation is successful. One of the things that we're doing in CSBA was we are getting ready, we are getting trained and prepared for all the elements and the implementation in different areas. One of the things that is challenging for school districts and also school districts is the implementation of the budget. With all the changes of the LCFF, there's going to be a lot of need to have specific information so that the school district with the school boards can establish the goals and the plans, and with that establish the budgets, so that the services can be provided specifically for those students and those students that have been underserved. We don't want them to be underserved anymore, so we want them to be performing well at the same level as any others. As the regulations get implemented, we want to make sure that we have the information up to date so that we can provide that information to the stakeholders, because we are welcoming and even encouraging the involvement of the different stakeholders, because this is a plan. This is a way to go. With everybody has to work together. We want to work in collaboration with all the stakeholders. We need the input. This is very informative for us. So we're going to take all this information, but we also want the regulations and all the information from the state to be available so that we can provide that to the stakeholders and move forward with the implementation of LCFF.
So Stephanie Houston and then Jan Correa. And after those two comments, we will turn it over to San Diego.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Houston, Superintendent of Colton, Redlands, Yucaipa ROP. The regional delivery structure identified in California as regional occupational centers and programs has demonstrated a successful model to engage students, raise student achievement, increase high school completion and transition to post-secondary education, as well as boost students' earning power after high school. 90% of the fastest growing jobs in the United States require some form of education beyond high school. ROP links career, high school, and post-secondary education to fill that gap by giving students hands-on experience with specific career areas. ROCP funding is currently part of the LCFF with a 2-year MOE provision. This 2-year MOE provides an opportunity to continue operation of ROCP and the regional delivery of CTE statewide. During this 2-year period, the state will be in a position to examine the outcomes for students and ensure alignment with the new LCAP, as well as the Academic Performance Index pursuant to SB 1458, which requires secondary indicators be given significant weight in the accountability system no later than 2016. CTE is firmly established in the Common Core State Standards, the LCAP, and the API, and the State Superintendent's of Public Instruction's College and Career Readiness Initiative. Moving forward, it is essential to maintain a dedicated funding stream that allows for the maintenance and growth of high-quality CTE programs. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jan Gustafson-Correa, and I am the CEO of the California Association for Bilingual Education, CABE. And I'm here to echo some of the comments that were made around parent involvement and transparency. In specific, I'd like to talk about this specifically to the development of the LCAP. We're aware that school districts will be receiving funding in one large sum this coming school year. And we really request that districts are given the direction and support to really demonstrate compliance with the LCFF. That would require transparency and clear demarcation of the actual amount of appropriation from each of the 3 program-based accounts, or the 3 program accounts, base, supplemental, and concentration. It's so important that we have that demarcation and that there's an accounting for how each of those fund amounts is being spent. And in relation to that, that's related to our parents so they understand that process. In tying that back into the involvement of DLACs, we're appreciative of the support of the DLACs and the inclusion of them in the LCFF. We also, though, feel that the non-inclusion of regulations around ELACs really is an oversight for the development of the DLAC. So if we want to have our DLACs to have strong participation in this process, we really want to see the development of our ELACs as well. And so we ask that there really would be funding and regulations included to really provide the support for ELAC development and that those are involved within the regulations. We want to ask that there are state funds used clearly for supporting the work of the DLAC and other parent advisory groups, and that we really see that clear demarcation of our funding and how that's being spent. Thank you.
Okay, so our colleagues in San Diego, the floor is all yours. I believe we have 12 commenters in San Diego.
I think we do, and we are looking for our first 3 speakers, David Page, Steve Pinning, and Karen Valdez.
Hello again, my name is David Page. This legislation marks a couple of things. First, San Diego Unified, the employees from the superintendent on down are enjoying significant pay raises, while the students and parents are mourning the death of mandated funding amounts for GATE, VAPA, Visual Performing Arts, or counseling or libraries, and so we're on the losing end of it. But we're asking, or we've been asked by the state to come here and talk about parent involvement. And Because I've had 6 kids in the system over probably 20 years, I have a different view than maybe a kindergarten parent when offered this opportunity. My concern is that we're creating another committee to attend that parents don't have the time for. So without combining this with the school site plan and the district level LEA plan, it's merely another committee. The funding for those committees are allowed to spend for training, to train parents to be involved, to reach out into the communities to find those parents from all areas. The school site and the district level allow for the inclusion of the ELAC and DLAC, and they could be a part of this if properly done. But more significant than that, this plan must require training, because over the years, anyone can tell you that there are constant failures in accountability for these plans as they're written to be actually executed, the transparency of them, and for the failure to involve parents before the fact. The laws are currently written within the LEA plans and the site plans to involve parents and community and all the stakeholders, teachers as well, ahead of time. Let's work with something we've already built. Let's include training and do it well, and include monitoring, and more than that, transparency through the internet. We are in the 21st century, and we can afford to have online trainings that are standardized either from the district, the county, or the state, and we can afford to have information posted about minutes, meetings, and documents important to understanding this prior to meetings. And so let's use the internet at its best. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Steve Pinning. I'm the Senior Director for Career Technical Education and Regional Occupational Programs here at the San Diego County Office of Education. I want to voice my agreement and support of the statements from Stephanie Houston earlier. I also want to encourage rigorous and transparent CT accountability. As the LCAP guidelines are developed and API measures are modified, I'd like to see this be an inclusive process with CT professionals at the table as these decisions are made and tools are developed. As Stephanie stated, CT is firmly established in the Common Core and is a key element of career readiness. And career readiness needs to be clearly defined for our parents, our students, and our school staffs statewide so that we all are working from the same understanding of what career readiness is. Without its clear definition of career readiness, I feel we risk losing robust, technically rich CTE programs. CT accountability should include, at minimum, annual industry advisory committees for CT courses, the sequencing of courses in several industry pathways, industry partnerships, industry licensure and certifications where appropriate, rich technical skill content, and robust workplace and hands-on learning experiences. Should also include a regional structure that is agile and responsive to the region workforce needs, much like ROCPs do today. Thank you.
Thank you. We're looking for, we're looking for Karen Valdez. Is she in the room or has she left? Okay, we're going to move forward then with our speakers list, and we're looking for Tamara Hurley, Manuel Gonzalez, and then Matt, is it Yangadan?
Hi, my name is Tamara Hurley, and I have 2 children in San Diego Unified School District. Students, as Megan Kerr said, are the true stakeholders of California's K-12 public education system, and at 6.2 million, by far the largest. And yet students have little to no formal representation in almost all aspects of education decisions. The LCFF is an opportunity to rectify this situation by giving parents the ability to act as stakeholders to give students a voice. I applaud the intent to include parent involvement in the LCFF proposal, but I am concerned that there is plenty of wiggle room to allow districts to give lip service to parent involvement rather than to allow parents to act as true stakeholders in education. Parents need formal representation at school sites. Rather than add, like David said, yet another committee, expand the role of school site committees to include new responsibilities under LCFF. Parents should have defined roles at equivalent committees at the school district. District decisions, including things like collective bargaining and budget, have massive direct and indirect impacts on student programs and services, as well as school site funding. The true stakeholders, students, currently have no voice in these decisions. Parents should be members of the district committees developing the LCAPs, not just advisory committees to which the district must respond to concerns, but not necessarily redress them. Finally, to have effective stakeholder involvement in committee function, the state should offer training for parents, like a simple online video seminar on the roles, legal responsibility, and rights of members of these committees. Sadly, history and experience have demonstrated that school districts don't really want to have parents actively involved in anything beyond helping with homework, fundraising, volunteering in the classroom, unless it's required by law. Parents need to have defined structures and roles stipulated in the regulations to ensure that parents have a voice.
Hello, my name is Manuel Gonzalez. I'm a parent of 5 former school district students, and to resonate with the member in LA, I am now a grandparent with one of the students in the district. So whatever knowledge you accumulate, it stays and comes back again. Be ready. I wanted to ask for 2 things out of this consideration. First, to funds be allocated for identifying, researching best parent engagement practices, and to the development of an audit on that documents the most disengaging practices affecting participation of parents at a governance level. We have the misguided notion that parents are really good at showing up as magic elves with cookies at these events, and truly their governance level is what's going to make this into something else other than a committee. Second requirement, I need to emphasize that you should specify the inclusions of parents of students that are bused to schools, so that they become part of the school's leaderships, and that they hold these schools accountable in the process of becoming transparent. And I'll use the rest of my time to tell you I was a parent at La Jolla High School in San Diego for 10 years, participated in all the PTA meetings, all of the ad hoc committees that they invited me to, all the site council meetings, and I was the volunteer debate coach. When I asked repeatedly from the principal to include me in the site governance committee, he declined. And now this principal has been reassigned because of the lack of oversight on the way he and the people under him used ASB funds. I wish they would have allowed me to be there.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon. My name is Matt Yagiaga, and I'm here representing Alliance San Diego. We are a social justice organization locally based in San Diego. We mobilized 30,000 voters in support of Prop 30 this last election cycle, and we also worked with parents across San Diego Unified School District to push their legislators to support the local control funding formula in this past budget cycle. So as our school districts in San Diego receive more funding from the LCFF, there are 3 points we would like to make. The first of which is, at the very minimum, we want to make sure our school districts spend the same amount of money on disadvantaged students that they did last year, at the very minimum. We don't want our most vulnerable students to be forgotten or neglected in the transition of monies, because this really is a watershed moment in the way that our schools are funded. Secondly, per the new law, our school districts will need to increase or improve services for our foster youth, English learners, and low-income students. We look forward to learning more about the new investments the school district will make for these students. And according to a 2012 study we commissioned that targeted 1,000 low-income and English learner parents in Southeast San Diego and City Heights, they believe that school districts should invest in after-school programs, homework assistance classes for parents so they can help their children with homework, lower student-to-teacher ratios, and greater access to technology in the classroom. The third point is, ultimately, we want to make sure that these new investments will go to programs or services that will directly benefit our students and not adult interests. Now, I want to make one last recommendation, and that recommendation is that we have to have a defined path for community and parent involvement. We are encouraged that parental engagement is a state priority that will be part of the LCAP, but we want the state to develop guidance to ensure that we continue to have school site governing structures like our school site councils to enable broader parental involvement. Because San Diego Unified is the second largest school district in the state, and a 10-member advisory council is not enough to represent the diversity of parents in our great city. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk today.
Our next speakers will be Dan Nyamanja. We'll have Virginia Angay, then followed by Julio Rulicava, and then Delfina Guzman. Do we have Dan in the room? Okay, I'm going to keep going. Do we have Virginia in the room? Okay, Judith? Okay, then after that, we would have Delfina Guzman. Okay, we're not doing very well. Joanne, I think you're up. Woo! Okay, so we have Joanne Fields here.
Not sure what time it is, but I'll say good afternoon. My name is Joanne Fields. I'm very involved in the community. I'm very involved as a parent, and that's my most important title as a parent. And I'm here to speak on that studies we all know that studies prove that parent involvement ensures students' academic success. However, when parents are last on the agenda, how are we going to get involved? If parents don't know about the meeting, how are we going to get involved? Our ESL students are a part of this process. Our low-income parents and students are supposed to benefit from this, but we're working at this time. I'm blessed that I was able to get an approval to be out of work today so I can come provide 2 minutes of testimony. But now I'm preaching to the choir, because if you pan out to the room, half the people that should be hearing the message are not here anymore. They were here to talk about salaries, and I'm not opposed to salaries because I know as a working poor parent that qualifies my school to receive LCFF funds, I know what it means to want a livable wage. But yet, half the people are not here. In San Diego Unified, where I mentor ESL students and foster youth, 90% of the district and District E meet the federal low-income guidelines. 40% are ESL students. They have the largest number of foster youth, but yet it's not reflected here. And that upsets me, but I do appreciate having the opportunity to share this with all of you. I don't want to be a thorn in the side. I want to be a part of the solution, and thank you for the opportunity.
We're looking for our last speaker of the morning here in San Diego, and that would be Margie Garcia. Margie? Here she comes. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Margie Garcia. I am represented by United Nations and Association of San Diego. I'm also a global speaker for RAIN and the founder of the National Bowling Not Cool School Assembly. When it comes down to parent involvement, it very much so concerns me because as a single parent, graduate from one of the San Diego Unified Schools, it concerns me that we feel like we don't have a voice. Yes, we do. It's the involvement of the parent, the success of our student, and their well-being. One of my biggest concerns that I have seen today is, again, addressing, yes, we do have all the people that was here early morning, but as it died down, everybody has left the room. One of the biggest concerns most as a single parent is having 3 current students and programs are continuing to be cut. I truly understand the importance to remain proactive in our kids' education within the classrooms and support funding for our schools. I now step to us and ask each and every one of you, from the superintendent to government officials down to our parent involvement. Seasoned in the advertising, marketing, PR, and especially in the music and entertainment world, I take my knowledge and my wisdom and extend it to our California schools before I extend that to other states and cities within the U.S. I would like to also ask that you consider for creative finances within our schools to bring back the music as well as fitness programs for our schools, meaning responsible advertising within California public education, potentially generating a minimum of $1 million per school year. It is that our parents need to step up further and extend our wisdom and knowledge, especially our talent, to further assist, support our teachers and our schools, to bring back more school assemblies and programs for our students. I leave this back to you. How can I help? Thank you for the opportunity.
Well, that concludes our last speaker here in San Diego County Office of Education, so we'll turn it back to you.